Hello and greetings and welcome to Arkham Asylum yet again. Mr. Rogue speaking here. I just saw The Batman yesterday in movie theaters. Matt Reeves' The Batman. And in this video, I basically just ramble on about The Batman and how I felt about The Batman. I guess this is a pretty special event actually, because this is the first time a Batman movie comes out since I started YouTube. Not a single Batman movie has been released since I started YouTube 5.5 years ago. I guess the closest thing we've got is the Joker movie. So yeah, it's a pretty big thing actually. Well, where do I even begin? I mean, well, did I like the movie? Well, yes, I did indeed like the movie. Did I love the movie? Yes, I did indeed also love the movie. So I guess now we got that out of the way, Mr. Rogues did indeed like and love The Batman. So you can all relax now, there's no need to go fetch the pitchforks. I mean, what a movie. This is definitely the most unique Batman movie ever made, behind Batman Returns of course. I mean, just filmmaking in of itself, the cinematography and the tone and everything, it just really stands out next to all the other Batman movies. I mean, everybody praises Christopher Nolan as this brilliant filmmaker, but his filmmaking in of itself is pretty simple. He just shows you what's happening, and I mean, there's nothing really special about his direction and filmmaking. He's more about these high concepts. That's what makes his movies special. He's a high concept kind of guy. Not really the filmmaking in of itself. It's kind of just I don't want to say generic, but because that sounds too negative, but it's the only word I can think of at the moment. It's a bit generic. It's just kind of basic filmmaking. His movies doesn't really look a whole lot different from other movies. They just look like movies. I mean, can you really point out the Christopher Nolan movie right away? Like, you just see one scene, a random scene from a Christopher Nolan movie, and unless you know what movie it already is, you're not really gonna go like, oh, that's a Christopher Nolan movie. But this movie, The Batman, looks very different, very special. I mean, the compositions, the choice of camera work, the lighting, and even the music, it's all very unique. It's unlike anything we've ever really seen in a Batman movie before. And it's a kind of slow-moving movie. We don't constantly cut and we don't jump from scene to scene, which Nolan kinda tends to do. He's in a bit of a hurry to finish up the movie. But a lot of directors are like that nowadays. This movie is more reminiscent of the Joker movie in terms of cinematography and tone than any other really superhero movie. It doesn't even really feel like a superhero movie. Well, except maybe in the third act, it kind of devolves into a typical superhero fare. In the finale, sorta. Not quite, but a bit. I wasn't really a huge fan of that, but it does fit. It does fit with the story, and it does fit Batman's arc. So I can't really complain about it. I just didn't quite like it that much. Because all the other parts of the movie feel so different from anything else we've gotten with superheroes in movies. I mean, especially when it comes to DC and Marvel. Like I said, it's a slow-moving movie, and it's also incredibly dark and depressing. I mean, we always say this about Batman and Batman movies, that they're dark and such, and gritty and grim. People, of course, think that the Dark Knight trilogy is dark and grim, and that Batman v Superman is dark and grim. And yeah, they are, but that's nothing compared to this. That's nothing compared to this. Then the opening really lets you know what this movie is gonna be. It really sets the tone for the rest of the movie. The whole introduction of Gotham City and Batman, the legend of Batman and criminals in the city and all that, and how the effect that the bat signal has on criminals. That really sets the tone and lets you know that this is a really dark, gritty, grim Batman movie. And I love that. I loved that. I was afraid, of course, I've said this in the past, that this was just gonna be Nolan 2.0 and way too similar to the Nolan movies in style and tone and storytelling and all that. But, well, it turned out that it really isn't. It really is not. I mean, there are some similarities with the Nolan movies. Like, for instance, this is a more realistic Batman universe compared to the Burton and Schumacher movies, or, well, just the comics in general, just Batman in general. But it's a different kind of realistic. This movie, this universe, is more grounded than Batman usually is. I can't really see supernatural stuff appearing here. I can't really see a clay monster and a plant lady appearing in this universe. But it's also very stylized, which the Nolan movies were not. It's very stylized. Gotham City looks quite grotesque actually, which I'm very happy about. It's not like in the Nolan movies where it was this... Well, it was basically just Chicago and New York, because that's where he filmed. And he didn't really do anything to change the look of it in the movie. It just looks like Chicago and New York. But this Gotham in this movie does not look like any city in the real world. It looks horrible in the best possible way. It's very, very grimy and dirty and filthy and very gothic, actually, surprisingly, very gothic. I don't think any of the trailers or stills or any kind of marketing does it justice. You really have to see the movie to really know what it's really like, because you can't really tell by any of the marketing stuff. I mean, it fooled me, especially the first trailer. It made it look like, well, Nolan 2.0, but that's thankfully not the case. This is actually, in my opinion, the second best looking Gotham City in movies. After Batman Returns, of course. I mean, nothing can beat Batman Returns visually. But this is the second best one. Visually, Gotham City and just the movie as a whole is very similar to Blade Runner and also The Crow movie from the 90s. I think that's what it resembles visually the most, those two movies. And it also constantly rains. It pours down almost throughout the entire movie, which is of course also very similar to Blade Runner and The Crow. And this just adds to the whole grimy, gritty feel of the film. And it's so dark visually. I mean, even during daytime scenes, it looks dark. And I don't mean that they didn't use enough lighting. It's just that the city itself is just so dark. There's hardly any sunshine. And, well, it gives it this kind of nightmarish, claustrophobic feel, like you're in this horrible nightmare world. Which is exactly what Tim Burton also did with his two movies, especially with Returns. I've really missed that in Batman movies. It's been so long since we had a stylized, weird-looking Gotham City. We got just a normal-looking city in the Dark Knight trilogy, and also in the DCEU, Batman v Superman. It basically just looks like a normal city there too. And I'm so tired of it. I want to see what we got back in the 90s. I mean, that really actually was just one of the reasons why I became a Batman fan in the first place. Because I loved this world that Batman and his characters lived in, Gotham City. This grotesque, bizarre city. And when it's just a normal looking modern city, you lose something, and thankfully we finally have it back now on the big screen in live action. I mean, some of the sets are just amazing, like the funeral scene at the City Hall, I think it was. That looks it's like some kind of church from the medieval ages, both the outside and the inside. And Wayne Tower. There's no Wayne Manor, oddly enough, in this city. Bruce and Alfred lives in Wayne Tower, and the outside looks fairly normal, but the inside of it, Bruce Wayne's quarters, it looks like the freaking Castle Dracula. It's so gothic and old looking. You have these statues and things, and these stairs, and bookshelves. It looks really like something out of the medieval ages or something. It looks like a castle on the inside of Wayne Tower, and I love that. And of course it's very dark in there. Everything is very dark in this movie, and I love that. And it's not dark in the sense that you can't see anything, because that was a problem I had with the first trailer that came out, is that I could barely see what was going on. But that's not how it is in the actual movie. You can clearly see everything, but it's still dark. I don't know what was wrong with that first trailer. That was an awful trailer, because it just gave me the completely wrong vibes about this movie, and they pretty much fixed it in the second trailer. That looks a lot better, but not even that one could come anywhere near to do the movie justice, what it's actually like, and the actual tone and feel of the movie. I guess trailers just kind of suck in general. So what about Batman himself, Robert Pattinson's Batman? Well, just like the movie itself, it was a very unique and very different Batman from anything else we've gotten. I've seen a lot of people calling this the definitive Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, and I just do not agree with that at all. He's really far away for me from being definitive Batman. I think Christian Bale is a lot more closer to the definitive Batman and Bruce Wayne rather than Pattinson when it comes to the live action movies. And of course we have the animated series and the Arkham games, which is a lot more definitive Batman, especially compared to Robert Pattinson. But I did absolutely love Robert Pattinson's Batman. It's a very, very good alternate Batman for me. I mean, just like the movie itself, he's extremely dark and depressing and brooding. I mean, he seems miserable. Bruce Wayne seems absolutely miserable in this movie. I mean, he doesn't smile a single time, I think. I mean, Christian Bale smiled a lot in his 3 movies. I mean, damn. He doesn't even bother to, like when he goes into the Batcave after a night out as Batman, he just takes off the mask and doesn't even bother to fix his hair, like comb it back like this. It just kind of down in his face, all greasy and sweaty, and because he just can't bother. He's just so obsessed with his Batman work, and he doesn't even remove the paint he has around the eyes, the black paint, the raccoon eyes. He doesn't remove that. He just sits with the paint around his eyes in the Batcave, and he doesn't bother going out at all as Bruce Wayne, like Christian Bale did that a lot in his movies. He had this whole bit where he's out about town and pretending to be this spoiled playboy just to throw people off from suspicion that he's Batman. Robert Pattinson does not do that at all. He's a recluse. He's more similar to Michael Keaton's Batman in that sense, because he was also a recluse and kind of an oddball, which Pattinson also is. He's kind of strange. He doesn't behave like a normal human when he's out in public. The few times he's out in public, and he's constantly brooding even when he's out in public as Bruce Wayne. He looks just as brooding and serious and angry as he does when he's in the Batcave or when he's in the Batsuit. He doesn't change his behavior or his appearance in any way. That was really interesting. I mean, sure, you could argue that, well, wouldn't everybody suspect that this guy's Batman then, because he's so weird and reclusive? Maybe, but I don't really care, because it does offer us a very different take on Bruce Wayne. I mean, it is a bit similar to Michael Keaton's Batman, Bruce Wayne, but still quite different. I mean, Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne didn't seem to be miserable like Pattinson's does. I mean, wow. This guy is just filled with pain and rage. And because of that, he also makes for probably the scariest Batman in the movies. Maybe? I don't know. It's kind of strange. I mean, I've only seen the movie once, and it was yesterday, and I really need to, well, at the making of this video, I'm not sure if I'm gonna upload it that same day as I'm filming it. And I really do need to see it again as well, probably several times. But At the same time as he's the scariest movie Batman, he's also kinda the most human and relatable movie Batman, which is really weird. Unlike other movie Batmans, most specifically Christian Bale's and I suppose Ben Affleck's as well, this Batman doesn't really hide in the shadows all the time, and even during crime scene investigations kinda appears after all the police have left. He doesn't do that, he just waltzes right onto the crime scene alongside Gordon. The place is full of cops and he just kinda walks around there and does his investigation, and we see him talk with a lot of characters. He's quite chatty with people. I mean, this movie does take place 2 years into his career, so everybody in Gotham is aware of Batman. Everybody knows that he exists and everything, so he's not new. But they're still not quite comfortable with him. Well, barely at all. Only Gordon is really comfortable with Batman. All the other cops seems to hate Batman, which I really liked, by the way. Because why wouldn't they? Here's this weird freak vigilante in a bat costume who thinks that he can do their work. Just waltzes onto their crime scenes. It would be weird if they were all, "Oh, hi Batman, how you doing? Please help us out." It's not like that at all. They don't want him there at all. It's Gordon who keeps bringing him to the crime scenes. And I really love that, the dynamic that Batman had with the police force. It's the first time we've really seen something like this in the movies, because the other films don't really explore Batman's relationship with the police force all that much. It's mostly just his relationship with Gordon, especially of course in the Nolan trilogy. I mean, they just kind of brush it over in Begins, I suppose, and in The Dark Knight he's basically accepted by the entire police force already. And if he isn't, they don't really explore it whatsoever. And of course in the Burton and Schumacher movies, the police force was almost non-existent. But this movie really explores all that. What the police really feel about Batman, and how Batman feels about the police. And all of that was really fascinating. I love that scene when Batman was arrested when he was in the holding cell with a whole squad of police officers and Gordon. That was a really interesting and cool scene. And to touch upon Gordon himself a little bit, I thought he was very good. I liked him quite a lot. I do think I still prefer Gary Oldman's Gordon though, because he felt more fleshed out than this one does. Even already, I mean, in the first movie, in Batman Begins, I feel like we fleshed out Gordon more. In this movie, he's basically just kind of there. And we don't really know why he's the only good cop in the city and why he's the only cop who cooperates with Batman and works with Batman. He just does. We don't really know why. I guess that's already been explained earlier, before this movie started, because like I said, this is 2 years into Batman's career, and I'm not really saying that we need to know why Gordon is the way he is. This movie does kind of just jump right into things, and I like that about it. I don't want another origin story. I'm sick of origin stories. And so basically already when the movie begins, we got the classic team of Batman and Gordon, and they're working on cases together. And they did have a very good dynamic. I love the dynamic between Batman and Gordon in the movie. Probably maybe the best dynamic we've seen between them. Even though I do feel that Ullman's version was more fleshed out already in the first movie, as I said. But I mean, we got a lot more of Batman and Gordon working on cases together in this movie than we've gotten before. They didn't necessarily do that much of that in the Nolan trilogy. It was more like Batman showed up and gave Gordon some evidence or whatever. And in this movie, we see them find the evidence together. I mean, this is more of a detective movie than any other Batman movie after all, so it makes sense. At the core of it, it is a detective movie, a dark, noir detective movie, a crime drama, a film noir, detective film noir. It really is. Until it kind of devolves into superhero action in the finale, which again does fit. it's not really out of nowhere, but it kind of felt out of nowhere to me personally. But it's not. It does build up to it, and it does make sense for the plot, and it also makes sense for Bruce Wayne's arc, as I said earlier. But it still feels a little bit out of the... like, it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the movie to me, even though at the same time it does, if that makes any sense. I guess I just wasn't quite enjoying the third act as much as I was the rest of the movie. Because the rest of the movie is this dark, almost kind of horror-ish film noir, extremely gritty detective story. And then in the finale, it's a lot of action and stuff, high scales, the whole city is at stake, the typical stuff. I guess I'm just kind of sick of seeing that in the Batman movies, because that's what we always get. I was hoping we wouldn't get any of that in this one, finally. That would be smaller scale. But it does lead to some interesting possibilities for the next movie, of course, seeing how this one ended. I sure hope they keep what happened at the end of this movie for the next one, and don't just jump ahead in the future to when it's all been resolved, because that's what The Dark Knight did. At the end of Batman Begins, they talk about the Narrows being completely lost after the fear toxin attack. And then in The Dark Knight, we don't hear anything about the Narrows. That's already been solved now. I don't want them to do that yet again. I want to see the consequences of this movie in the next one. Well, I guess I should talk about the villains. I mean, that's what we all love here on this channel. I'm actually not going to talk about the Riddler, because I want to do a separate video for him. That's right, I'm bringing back Batman movie villains. After like, what, 3 years or something? To do one for the Riddler, just the Riddler. I can't do one for the Penguin, because he's not in the movie enough, and we're gonna see more of him, of course, in the HBO Max series. Maybe after that series is done, I can do one for him. I mean, I'm at least gonna review the series. I'll probably also do a specific video just about the Penguin. I don't really feel like doing a video for Catwoman, because, I don't know. I'm kind of sick of Catwoman. So let's just talk about Catwoman then right away. She was great, a great Catwoman, but I don't really care that much, because I'm so sick of Catwoman. I think we got a pretty definitive Catwoman already in The Dark Knight Rises, and we got a great alternate Catwoman in Batman Returns, of course, and we also got a great definitive classic Catwoman back in the 60s TV show. So, did we really need more Catwoman? No, we did not. But she was still great in the movie. If she's similar to any other Catwoman from the past, in live action, of course, is what I'm talking about here, it would be the Anne Hathaway Catwoman. It's pretty much Catwoman, modern Catwoman, ripped straight off the page from the comics. She's a thief. She's not really a villain. She's more of an anti-hero. She's morally ambiguous. She has a flirtation going on with Batman. All of that stuff is there. I don't really feel they did anything new with Catwoman. She is, of course, integral to the plot, though, so she kind of had to be there. She has a very close connection to Carmine Falcone, who's also integral to the plot, a lot more than I thought he would be. He's way more important to this movie than he was in Batman Begins, and he has a much bigger role also than he did in Batman Begins, and I enjoyed him a lot more than I did in Batman Begins as well. I think this was a lot better Carmine. I guess we were talking about Catwoman though, not Carmine Falcone. Well, what else can I say about this Catwoman? Well, she's never called Catwoman. Again, just like in The Dark Knight Rises, they just refuse to call Catwoman Catwoman. They just refer to her as Selina, not even Selina Kyle this time. They mention her mom's name, Maria Kyle, and that's really it. For the rest of the movie, they just call her Selina. They do refer to her as the Cat, or the Cat Burglar, a couple of times, but that's more like, it's not an official name, it's just like, kind of... Her costume was fine, I kind of liked her costume actually, except for, of course, for the mask. It's... Again, just like Dark Knight Rises, I like the costume just fine, but the mask is pretty terrible. I mean, the ski mask with the pointed tips sort of looks like ears. I mean, I guess it's kind of makes sense though. Would it really make a lot of sense if this Selina Kyle was fully decked out in a Batman Returns style cat costume? Maybe not. I did really like Selena's theme, her musical theme. It was actually very reminiscent of her Batman Returns theme, which was obviously done on purpose as some kind of homage or something. Speaking of the music overall is just great. Most of the themes were great. I love Batman's theme. One of the better Batman themes. It doesn't beat the Danny Elfman theme, of course, but it's better than his themes that he had in the Dark Knight trilogy, for sure. More memorable and makes a bigger impact when you hear it, especially in the opening when they really bombard you with that theme. And it works really well. And since I'm not going to talk about the Riddler, I guess we should move on to the Penguin. I love the Penguin. He was actually my favorite character in the movie. Perhaps oddly enough, because he's not in the movie that much. He's Carmine Falcone's right-hand man and the owner of the Iceberg Lounge, where Carmine and his cronies hang out. Penguin in the movie is pretty much modern comic book Penguin. He's a mobster who runs the Iceberg Lounge. There are some differences though. He doesn't speak in a sophisticated manner as he usually does in the comics. Instead, he talks like a classic stereotypical New York gangster. He has that typical accent. He talks like he's out of some old James Cagney movie. And I like that actually, that was fun. And Colin Farrell is completely unrecognizable. I mean, people talk about Heath Ledger being unrecognizable as the Joker in Dark Knight. But you can kind of hear Heath Ledger here and there and recognize him a little bit in some scenes behind the makeup. But with Colin Farrell in this movie, it's just nothing. You can't see Colin Farrell in there at all or hear him at all. I mean, it's like a completely different person. They did an amazing job with the makeup, and I really like the makeup. Some people have complained about it and that it's bad. Some people say it looks bad. Some people say it doesn't look like the Penguin enough. I think it's fine. I think it does look enough like the Penguin. Really, it does. All you're really missing is the top hat and the monocle. If you would slap those on there, you'd say, well, that's the Penguin. And I like the fact that they added a bunch of scars to his face and the teeth. What was it? Did he have gold teeth or something? It was something about his teeth. And I liked his outfits. They were penguin-y enough. I mean, they fit the context of this movie. I don't think it would make a lot of sense if he waltzed onto the scene with a tailcoat. Maybe he can wear a tailcoat at some point, in his own show, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for him to wear it all the time, and purple pants and a top hat and a monocle. It just wouldn't really fit this movie and what the Penguin is in this movie. We did get some nods to his umbrella. He has an umbrella in a couple of scenes, but it's really just because it's constantly pouring down. We even got a nod to his waddle walk when Batman has him tied up by the ankles and he tries to walk, so he waddles. I do hope that he does employ actual weaponized umbrellas in his own show. I guess there's lots of time for that to happen. I mean, it's gonna be several episodes of an entire show. So, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get some more typical penguin-y stuff. I mean, I can't see this penguin flying away on a rocket umbrella or anything like that. But at least a gun hidden inside an umbrella, or an umbrella that can slide out this blade at the tip. That doesn't seem too unreasonable, and I hope we get something like that in his show. Again, he does have a fairly small role in the movie, so I can't really blame them for not including all of these typical penguin stuff. It seems like that's gonna come later. Well, I think this video is getting long enough as it is, and I barely know what I'm supposed to say anyway. I have barely been able to think about the movie. I just wanted to get something out there. I'll probably make more content about the Batman in the future, especially after I've seen it again. Shut up, you damn birds! And as I said, I will do a separate video for the Riddler that's gonna be more focused. I might even do a ranking in the future of my favorite Batman movies now that this movie has come out. And I've also changed my mind about some of the older Batman movies, like for instance Batman Returns would be a lot higher now than it was on my previous list. So that's something I'm probably gonna do as well. I'm probably gonna do a lot of Batman movie related stuff and the Batman related stuff in the coming not too far away future. And I think we should just cut it here now. Now you at least know my initial thoughts and reactions to this movie, and just how I feel about it in general. My basic thoughts on it, nothing too in-depth, I guess. And let me know down in the comments how you feel about it. Maybe not too in-depth, just did you like it, didn't you like it? Maybe where would you rank it in a list of Batman movies? How did you feel about the villains, etc, etc. And of course, as always, remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.